And even now blue is always here, and even now blue it shines so clear. I don't need a prayer or even words to say. No matter what I do, I'll never reach your answer. Colors of summer are stains on my heart, and rolling right down from my cheeks is the sound of love to start. The words I have for you are stuck, it just feels like a curse that I can't contain. Will the two of us meet again? I wish I told you back then. My hands will feel white, so red as time flies with this galaxy. It's all passing by me.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another video. In this video, I will be giving you guys my list of my top 15 favorite cartoons. Note that this is just my opinion, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and also let me know what your top cartoons are. If you've known me for a while, I am a huge cartoon fanatic. One of my very old YouTube usernames, yes, back then I would change my username quite a lot, and one of them was TDI cartoon fan. No, it was like that it was something cartoon fanatic. It was something like that. TDI cartoon fan, I believe that was, yeah, it was that. That's the one that rings a bell. TDI cartoon fan. That was one of my names. So yes, I was a huge cartoon fan. I still am a huge cartoon fan. As you can see, I'm making a video based on cartoons. And yeah, with that said, I may have some recent bias when it comes to a couple of the choices I have in my. So with that said, let's just get on with my list. Starting off the list is none other than The Owl House, one of the few recent shows on this list, of course. The show follows a girl named Luce who doesn't fit in with the society around her. However, she stumbles upon a portal that leads her to a whole nother world that's mythical, to say the least. It's got witches, it's got monsters, and of course danger. She befriends a psycho owl lady and a puppy, kind of, quote unquote puppy. They get into some crazy hijinks, and of course, those hijinks involve magic. And yeah, with that premise, it doesn't really sound like top 15 material, right? Well, that would be the case if it wasn't for how story driven the show is. We get a lot of plot twists and turns throughout this overarching story. I don't want to go into full detail, but I will say that another great thing about the show is how dark it can be, like really dark. Dark enough to have a warning sign pop up at the very beginning of some episodes. The characters are also very unique. We get some characters who start off pretty ruthless and cruel, but then they get some redemption and join our heroes. What can that mean? Oh, I think that it means that this show's got some great character development. Disney sure did this show dirty though when it came to the final season, how they handled it. But even with that, those final episodes are some of the best to come out of the studio. So yeah, this show is pretty great, and that's why it steals a spot on my list. Next up on my list is Amphibia, the show that kind of brought back the story-driven era in Disney Channel cartoons. So it makes sense why it makes it on my list. This cartoon follows a girl named Anne who got herself transported to another world, which, rings a bell, doesn't it? But this time, instead of just her, we also have her two best friends who also get transported to this world. However, the truth behind how they got there leads to their friendship in shambles. Yeah, a lot goes on with this one. Now, why is it on this list? Well, as I stated before, after this one was released, we got more cartoons to follow the recipe of this one, which for me was awesome. Yes, cartoons don't need to be story-driven to be great, as some cartoons on this list will prove that. But it's a nice change to have an overarching story throughout the entirety of the cartoon, and this cartoon is no different. The story that we see throughout the 3 seasons is quite a great one. Also, pretty different compared to other cartoons like Gravity Falls and The Ghost and Molly McGee. The characters are great as well, and at least Disney didn't fumble the bag with this one and let Amphibia end the way that it was interpreted to. So yeah, Amphibia has a lot to go for it, and if you're in need of a show to watch, this one is highly recommended.
SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob SquarePants.
Of course, this was probably expected by many of you to be on this list. SpongeBob SquarePants is such a phenomenon that it would honestly be a crime if it didn't make it on my list. While I will have to admit the show is definitely not the same and doesn't have its spark that it used to, one can't deny that the impact that the show left on the cartoon industry won't change. This cartoon follows a lovable sponge and his sea creature friends who live in the Bikini Bottom doing some pretty crazy things. Every episode is pretty much its own story. Also, not every episode is SpongeBob-centric. As a matter of fact, there are actually a few episodes that don't even involve or show SpongeBob at all. There can also be episodes that are based on Sandy here, and maybe a Squidward episode there. Even Plankton has his own episodes. That's one thing that this series nails at. Also, I bet that each character can relate to each and every one of us. Another thing that's hard to pull off. Each character is so different compared to one another that it makes their dynamic just as good. The humor of the show is also very good. Some of the best jokes and references in all of media come from this show. Even if it's not as good as it once was, the first 3 to 4 seasons alone can be considered as some of the best of all cartoons. And no matter what, no matter how long its legs last, the show will stand the test of time as one of the greats. It has been a good minute since I've last seen this show. However, I do plan on rewatching it soon. Anyways, next up is Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Definitely one of the most unique cartoons out there. From the mind behind the OG Powerpuff Girls and Wander Over Yonder, this show follows a boy named Mac who makes the ultimate decision to leave his imaginary friend in foster care for imaginary friends, as long as he can visit him every day and that they promise not to let some other kid take him. Quite an interesting concept, don't you think? Anyways, why is this show on my list? Well, the concept alone is worthy, but the execution of it all also helps carry the watchability of the show. The characters have a wacky inside-out style designs, which is great for a show like this. I remember having such a fun time with the show. It's also probably why it's on my list, because nostalgia plays a factor. The characters are great. Who else didn't have a crush on Frankie as a kid, right? Also, the specials really hit, some of the best from Cartoon Network. When I do get the chance to rewatch this show, I can certainly see it rank much higher on this list, but for now, it stays number 12. If you're looking for a good show to binge, this one should definitely fit that checklist. Yes, The Amazing World of Gumball did make the list. As the title says, this show is simply amazing. The show follows a boy who's also a blue cat, named Gumball, and another boy who's an orange fish, named Darwin. The show also shows both of them getting to some wacky hijinks, and that's pretty much the simple way of describing the show. No, the show isn't story-driven, other than a few episodes being like a two-parter, as well as the final season somewhat having an arc throughout it. Anyways, why do I love this show? While I do love story-driven cartoons, simple cartoons are just as good, sometimes even better. This show fits in that category. Not only are the episodes over the top on the crazy meter, but it's also over the top with the character designs. Each character is pretty much either made up of an object, a food, and yes, even things that are extinct like a freaking T-Rex. I do love the world building that this show brings to the table, hence the title, of course. And the animation is also very unique compared to other shows on this list. The animators really outdid themselves with this one. The show is just such a delight with the humor. Don't even get me started on the humor. This show has some crazy humor, and it's honestly really, really good. This cartoon is one of that you just simply can just put on the TV and get a good chuckle out of it. That's why you should definitely give this one a try.
Move it, football head!
Hey, Arnold!
Starting the top 10 is the one and only Hey Arnold. This cartoon came out in the late 1990s, and it follows a football-headed kid living life in New York City, as well as helping others. Now, I haven't seen the complete series from what I know of, but from all the episodes that I have seen, it's not hard to see why this show is so beloved. Unlike most cartoons that are pretty much defying reality, this one hits close to reality. The episodes and characters do relate to how one may see things in the real world, like character interactions, coming up with a plan that can help someone or something. How we as a society can really get along in the moments that we at least try. Also, some of the episodes here are some of the best that I've seen in all of television. Arnold's Christmas still holds up as one of the best and one of the most emotional episodes ever to air. It's one that I watch every year during Christmas time, and one that brings me the realization of how good this show can really be. Showing us how impactful people really are with one another, especially with the relationships we make along the way. This show also has some valuable life lessons and is not afraid to take on serious topics. It almost baffles me how this came out of Nickelodeon, the same studio who chose Fanboy and Chum Chum over Adventure Time, the same studio behind Breadwinners. Crazy how much has changed. But you have to admit that the 90s and early 2000s was the peak era for Nickelodeon. That era brought us many great cartoons, such as this one. Yes, it's about to be 30 years since the show first aired on the network, but that should not be an excuse. Definitely give this show a try because it deserves its recognition, and that's why it's on my list.
Walking a fine line, keeping control. Deep in the cut, ready to roll. Are you friend or are you foe? Now I gotta go it solo.
Yeah, this one might come as a shock for some. Detention Air is one of those few cartoons that is severely underrated. The cartoon follows a boy named Lee Peen who's been framed to have caused one of the biggest pranks in the history of high school, and he wants to get to the bottom of who framed him. And what he doesn't know is that it just gets messier with the conspiracies and whatnot. So yeah, that's a lot for a cartoon, right? What I love about Detention Air is how the story connects throughout the entire show. The characters are great too. The animation could have been improved, but that's fine. This show makes you use your mind to think of who did it. And, it's got action, it's got mystery, it's got romance, it's got the full package. It's another show that is simply rewatchable too. It's one that comes to mind every now and then, and I just love it. Also, I can't forget to mention how much the intro slaps. Definitely check this one out if you definitely want a good cartoon to watch. The Juggernaut prior to SpongeBob. Rugrats is one of those cartoons that really can put a smile on your face. That can make you laugh. It can make you cry. It can make you angry. It can make you feel all these types of emotions. I grew up with this show. I grew up with the movies. I ain't gonna deny that I'm not a 90s kid, even though I was born in the mid-2000s, but yeah. I remember curling up in bed and watching Rugrats. Whenever I stay home from school, I would put on the movies for me to watch, and the Rugrats movies were some of the ones that I remember watching the most. What SpongeBob is for some, Rugrats is for me. The animation, although a bit creepy at times, still holds up. The intro is one that lives rent-free in my head. The characters are some of the best to come out of Nickelodeon. To put it in simple terms, Rugrats is one of a kind, one that I deeply treasure, so of course it's on my list. Yes, this show that is pretty much the brand of my YouTube channel. Total Drama. If you have been watching my channel, chances are that you're also a fan of Total Drama, the show that started an entire generation of animated elimination shows, as well as Paper, if you know what I mean. The show is pretty much a hash on reality shows, specifically reality competition shows like Survivor and Big Brother. The show produces some very memorable cartoon characters like Owen, Gwen, Duncan, Heather, Alejandro, Don, Ella, you name it. The show that was way ahead of its time. The show that is not afraid to push its boundaries on TV. It's Total Drama. What else is there to say? This is another cartoon that will stand the test of time and will always resonate with me. One that I certainly won't forget. One that I may be binging currently. A show that means a lot to me, and others as well. Most of you, I'm guessing, because, like I said, about you who have been watching my channel and stuff. So, it's a no-brainer why Total Drama makes the cut on my list.
Excuse the day from sure destruction. This is the theme song. Go Jimmy Neutron.
Jimmy Neutron, the cartoon that isn't really a cartoon if you think about it, the first CGI show produced at Nickelodeon, and it is also one of the only CGI shows or cartoons, period. It follows a boy genius named Jimmy Neutron who gets into some wacky shenanigans with his friends Carl Weezer and Sheen Estevez. Shenanigans like saving the world, fighting some nasty villains, aliens, robots, you name it. What I love about the show is how different it is compared to other Nicktoons, and rightfully so. It's 3D, so it's got that going for it. It also has some of the best memes and lines in media. Who can't forget about the croissant? And the show has some of the best characters as well out of any Nicktoon. Of course, you got Jimmy, Sheen, Weezer, and the GOAT, Mr. Hugh Neutron himself. This show also has a movie, which is just as good. And this is another one that I just grew up with and I really hold dearly. If you haven't checked this one out yet, you definitely should.
And if you think we can, we'll always find a way. That's why the people of this world believe in Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl, and Steven.
This might be a controversial pick, but bear with me. If you've been watching my channel for more than 3 years, you probably know that I am quite the fan of this show. Steven Universe is one of the first cartoons to not be afraid to get out of their shell, to push boundaries on certain topics that you normally won't see in cartoons at all. Steven Universe follows a boy named Steven Universe, who's a half-human and a half-gem. With the help of the crystal gems, they are destined to save the world from destruction. What I love about this show is, of course, it's another story-driven show, and although at the beginning of Season 1, it was pretty iffy and a bit tough to go through. But once it starts to show character growth, tension, and an actual story that is progressing, that's what caught my eye. I pretty much binged the whole thing, so maybe it was easier for me to like it compared to others who had to watch it from the beginning. But yeah, the story is what truly carries the show for me, the characters too, and of course, the music is to die for. Rebecca Sugar sure is one heck of an artist. I would listen to the soundtrack every now and then, and most of the songs are some heavy hitters. Here Comes a Thought, I Can Never Be, Stronger Than You, It's Over, Isn't It? I can go on. Also, I binged the show in early 2019, so I finished it just in time for the movie. And the movie event was one of the best experiences I had. I remember being so excited, and once it aired on Cartoon Network and I sat down and watched it, I remember how much fun I had with it. Still holds up as one of the best cartoon movies. Up there with the regular show movie and the SpongeBob movie. Steven Universe helped me go through 7th and 8th grade, and those years were some of the most painful and tough years for me. So I guess you can say that I have a soft spot for this one, but I don't care. This show has a special place in my heart and is one that I will always remember.
The world is losing all control. Teen Titans. 1, 2, 3, 4, go! Teen Titans.
Teen Titans. What is there to say that hasn't already been said about this show? Teen Titans is one comic cartoon done right. Each of the 5 Titans had their fair share of the spotlight. The action is top notch for a cartoon. So are the villains and the other heroes we meet throughout the show. I wish I grew up with this show, just like everyone else did. But alas, I did not. Good thing I still had the interest in it to give it a binge once I had time. The overarching story that this show has is one of the best I've seen on TV. Each of the Titans are likable and great in their own ways. My personal fave would of course be the GOAT leader known as Robin. Slade is one badass of a villain and is probably the best villain from Cartoon Network. The writers did their very best with this one. And to end things off here, Teen Titans is certainly one of the best cartoons of all time. The intro is also very catchy. Definitely give this one a watch if you haven't. You will not regret it. Codename Kids Next Door was such a phenomenal cartoon. It was quite the experience watching this show from start to finish. The characters are awesome. The villains are awesome. When the show had some story-driven episodes, they hit and they hit hard. Nigel Uno is one of the best cartoon protagonists. The kid, quote-unquote, Robin, if you will. The rest of the team are just as good. It was very entertaining as a kid, seeing kids as some types of average agents, I should say, fighting tyranny known as adulthood. The animation still holds up for the most part, and this show is nearly over 2 decades old. It already is over 2 decades old. The ending never fails to leave a tear in my face, and I really hope to see a continuation to be greenlit and, the Galactic Kids Next Door. One day I really hope to see it, and it would be really fire. If only Cartoon Network wasn't as hesitant. But with the state that they are in now, I wouldn't be surprised if this continuation inevitably gets greenlit pretty soon. So yeah, Codename Kids Next Door is one of the best cartoons I've seen, and should definitely be seen by fans of Cartoon Network and of cartoons in general. I did not expect to like this show so much. This cartoon sure as heck is one very questionable one. It still boggles my mind how Cartoon Network gave this show the okay. I don't mind it, of course, but, you definitely wouldn't see this show be made today. Regular Show is one of very odd show. Far from regular by all means, but that's the charm of the show. How wacky and insane the show is what really carries the show for me. The characters and their dynamic with one another, the world building, all of the villains and monsters that they have to face, Mordecai being the Simp Lord and Rigby being the Giga Chad. The humor of this show also holds up quite a lot, especially the older you get and the more that you understand the humor that the show really had. I binged the show a lot, throughout the years, but a while back I binged it and I'm glad that I did. I loved the show before as a kid, and I remember watching the movie live and the finale live, and the ending still gets me, and honestly, it was just really good. And now with a rewatch, I have an even bigger appreciation for this show. It's silly, it's crazy, it's sometimes very, 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 very disturbing, but all of that is what makes Regular Show so special and unique, which would have been my top favorite cartoon if it wasn't for this one show that I watched last year. Brace yourselves.
An airbender named Aang, and although his airbending skills are great, he has a lot to learn before he's ready to save anyone. But I believe Aang can save the world.
This one may be very obvious for a lot of people, but come on. Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of a kind, and I really mean one of a kind. The premise of the show is so unique, the characters are great, the villains are great, the world building and arcs are great. Yes, this show has arcs. Some even confuse this cartoon with anime. That should explain plenty for why it takes the top spot for me. The fights are some of the best I've seen in media, and they went hard with the animation. The action, the suspense, the character development, Zuko's development is some of the best I've seen in all of media, honestly. The characters are so recognizable. The animation is the best of the best. Like, they really outdid themselves with this show. It's got everything: heart, soul, music, and oppa. Yip yip. What's not to love about Avatar? Hopefully, its reputation will not be ruined by the upcoming films and live action remake, but the films are in good hands because they're going to be made by the original creators of the show, so I'm not worried about them. And yeah, Avatar: The Last Airbender carries a generation of nostalgia, of heart, of everything for a lot of people, including me, which is why it is my all-time favorite cartoon. And there you have it. So I just listed my top 15 cartoons of all time. And let me know what your thoughts are on that. Let me know if some of these cartoons are actually on your top 15 list. And also let me know what your top 15 list of cartoons are in general. I had a fun time making this video, and I hope you guys did too. If you'd like to see more videos of me ranking stuff like anime, games, movies, etc., let me know in the comments. And even characters are included. And yeah, with that said, let me know what your top favorite cartoons are. And thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for the next one, and peace out.